Teaming Up is back from summer vacation. In this episode, Josh Dare and Amanda Colocho talk about social media and crisis communications. The pair will go through 5 case studies and talk about what worked and what didn't for these 5 well-known brands. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also watch this conversation on our YouTube page. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode.
Hey, everybody, this is Josh Dare. I'm here with Amanda Colocho, and welcome to the latest Hodges Partnership episode of Teaming Up. The team today, Amanda and myself, we Teaming Up is a series of conversations about various public relations topics. And the topic today is social media in the context of crises. I mean, we do a lot of crisis communications work here at the Hodges Partnership, and we always have. The emphasis traditionally has been on how are you going to respond to the news media? What's going to be in your news release? How do you it's always been that the media was that conduit to the public. And now things have changed significantly where social media really needs to be part and parcel of your crisis strategy. So we're going to talk about the different ways we go. Companies have addressed crises through social media today.
Yeah, we're going to talk through 5 different case studies. We will lay out the situation, what exactly happened. We'll talk about how the companies or organizations responded, and then how our take on, what they did right or what they did wrong, and maybe some recommendations on what others can do if that ever happens. And then we'll wrap up with just some key takeaways and things to always remember in case you ever find yourself in a crisis on social media. Then Josh, you'll kick us off with the first one.
Yeah, and our challenge will be to stick within 20 minutes because we could talk about this stuff hours. So we've got 5 case studies, so we'll try to get through them pretty quickly. The first one is a very familiar brand, and it's Weber Grills. Weber's a family-owned company, and one of the things they were doing on social media and through emails is they were posting a weekly recipe on how folks could use their Weber grill for cooking various things, maybe that you don't think of. The day they posted a recipe for meatloaf, unfortunately for them, was the exact same day that the singer Meatloaf passed away. And I can just imagine just being in that PR person's office or just being at the company and said, you know who died today? Meatloaf. And guess what? We just posted this thing. And people may have thought that they were trying to be funny or instead of being insensitive. And so what do you do? Right? What do you do when that kind of like innocent mistake was made?
Right. It's really a coincidence. And it really was, like you said, an innocent mistake that really could happen to anyone. And I think it's just interesting, given how niche, they're a grill company, they're talking about meatloaf, and somebody who happens to name meatloaf, it's just a funny coincidence.
Yeah. So very straightforward response, right? The company issued a very heartfelt apology. I'm going to read part of it. It says, at the time we shared this recipe with you, we were not aware of the unfortunate passing of actor and singer Mr. Marvin Lee Ade, which I never even knew his name before, also known as Meatloaf. We want to express our deepest apologies for this oversight and for any offense that it may have caused. We send our condolences to the family and fans. And thanks for understanding. And they signed it, the Weber family, which I think was also a nice touch. Like, we're a family. We made an innocent mistake. We put it out there. And the response from social media, pretty good, right? I mean, people took them at their word. Yeah. That's part of taking advantage of your reputation and being able to, they have a reputation of being kind of straight-laced and all that. So they took advantage of that. And it was a pretty straightforward case.
Yeah. I think
What's next, Amanda?
Yeah, the next case study, again, is for a brand who has, it's a very respected brand, one with a reputation also for being pretty straight-laced, pretty buttoned up, a little bit more of a serious tone with the content they share out, given the nature of what they do. That's the American Red Cross. So here's what happened. One of the nonprofit's social media managers mixed up her personal Twitter account for theirs and accidentally sent out a tweet on the Red Cross account that said, Ryan found 2 more 4-bottle packs of Dogfish Head's Midas Touch beer. When we drink, we do it right. hashtag getting slizzard. Clearly,
we can all relate to
got posted too.
I mean, we can all relate to this, right? I mean, we rely, and it's interesting. I mean, a lot of companies rely on that younger person to kind of staff the social media accounts. Sometimes it's even an intern, right? But there's a weight of responsibility that goes with it. And, these kinds of mistakes can happen. So what they do?
Well, I just want to emphasize that it's a really good reminder to audiences, to customers who might not always associate this, but behind every company's social media account is either one person or an entire team of people. So this really can happen to anyone. There are safeguards that can be put up, but it's definitely a mistake that could happen to anyone. But I like the way that they handled it. Instead of trying to delete the tweet and hope no one saw it, or just simply saying, sorry about that, they had a little bit of fun with it. At the end of the day, it was a funny, silly tweet. No one died. No one was hurt or hopefully truly offended. So they had a little bit of fun, and they responded in another tweet that said, "We have deleted the rogue tweet, but rest assured, the Red Cross is sober and we've confiscated the keys."
I love that.
It shows some humanness and personality behind it. Making a little bit of a lightheartedness or taking a lighthearted approach, I should say, with this. And then just to take it a little bit of a step further, the social media manager who sent the original tweet, that was a mistake, tweeted and said, due to my inability to use Hootsuite, I wasn't actually hashtag getting slizzard, but just excited, hashtag now embarrassed. So they had some fun with it. They said, we're all humans. It was a mistake.
What I love about this, Amanda, it's like you talked about, like the humanness about it, had a little fun with it. It wasn't a life and death situation. And what I love about it was when you work for a big organization like I have in the past, the amount of folks that have to approve something like this. So it clearly kind of got the attention of, the powers that be. And I give them so much credit because at every level, they agreed to go ahead with this kind of funny, humorous way of doing this. And so I think, I think that enhanced their brand. I think that made them even more human. And this is an organization people look to provide life-saving services in the wakes of disasters and giving blood and all those types of stuff, but yet still can have a little fun with this mistake. So I give them a lot of credit for this.
Yeah, I know our next one is not as lighthearted. So
So those were two that were pretty straightforward. The next one, and really this is kind of this one's a couple years old, and it shows kind of the power of social media because it has to do with Domino's Pizza. And a Domino's Pizza store down in North Carolina, 2 employees working late one night got bored or thought they would be funny and created a video showing them making the in a really disgusting way. And we won't go into it, and people can go and Google this and they'll find the video and all that. I mean, within 3 days, the video had 1 million views. 1 million views. It was one of the highest ranking searches on Google. Sales went down 50% in the next week. Its stock price took a hit. This was serious stuff because this was a video that was really damaging a reputation where the company really relies on their reputation for sanitation and cleanliness and wholesomeness and all this stuff. And it was just thrown out the window as a result of these 2 employees. So thoughts on what they should do?
I mean, unfortunately, it was 2 bad apples, 2 employees who ruined it for the whole company. But this was a clear mistake made, and employees that represented the company. So I feel like they just needed to throw their hands up and apologize, and maybe talk about what actions are going to be taken to make sure that never happens again. I mean, there's no coming out of that.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That's exactly what they did. So what they did is they went right to the top. They had the CEO create a video, and he was very straightforward and assertive. He said the store had been closed, and being totally cleaned head to toe. He said that the employees had been fired. A warrant was out for their arrest, and so you could tell that this is a company that wasn't going to take any nonsense from this. They didn't think it was funny. Now, what was interesting is 2 things about this. One, it was 3 days before they sent out that video. And so it really, they really kind of let it fester for longer than they should have. But what was interesting is they didn't put out a press release. They posted the video in the very places where it had gone viral. So that really become kind of a very standard response, and they kind of set the groundwork for that kind of a response. So the offending videos on YouTube, they put an apology video on YouTube so that the people can see it. And when people are Googling, when people Google Domino's video, presumably the apology video comes up there as well. So I like the way they handled it, except for that delay.
Right. Now, our next case study is another serious issue. And what's interesting about this one, being a social media crisis case study, is that it did not technically originate. The issue at hand didn't originate on social media. So it just shows the power of how quickly things can get posted and go viral. And a lot of people might remember this case. It was really popular and, like I said, viral. United Airlines was overbooked for a flight, and they had asked for passengers at random to exit the plane. One of them was an elderly doctor who refused. He needed to get, to where his destination was. And before long, security arrived and forcibly dragged him off of the plane. When I say forcibly, I mean pretty violently as well. He was bleeding and bruised up. And while this was happening, other passengers, were recording the event and posting online or, sharing on their social media platforms. And I think that's something that has become very normal in our culture today. In less than a day, the video was seen by 7 million people.
Yeah. I mean, everywhere we are, people have video cameras, right, in the form of their phones. Mm-hmm. Because when the company responded, they were very defensive and didn't really kind of appreciate what the average person was seeing. One of the lines from the CEO was, "We apologize that we had to reaccommodate," right? We had to reaccommodate that passenger. I don't think that passenger felt like he was being reaccommodated. He also, by the way, ultimately won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against United. There was some good passenger relation lessons, but there are also some social media lessons there about, making sure that your response reflects the real reality of what people are seeing.
Right. They just poured gas on fire of a situation that was already happening.
So I love the last one. And that's one that just happened last month. We're speaking here in September of 2022. This happened in August 2022. Actually, August 1st, our friends at Cracker Barrel, wholesome family restaurant. What was the great transgression that led to this crisis? It was they announced that there would be a new meatless sausage option, that those Impossible meats that, like, there's Impossible burgers. Mm-hmm. They have now an Impossible sausage that they were happy to introduce at their breakfast buffet, so that those people who don't eat meat might have an option. And who would have guessed how the internet would have reacted to what seemed like such a benign customer-centric gesture? But within a couple days, the social media had 7,000 comments, most of which were negative. The ones that were thanking Cracker Barrel for the option were drowned out by comments such as, like, "Get woke, go broke. You just lost your customer base." I mean, people were just genuinely offended by this. So I mean, how would you have predicted that such a thing would happen?
I mean, it's silly when, us seeing it from an outside perspective. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are the social media manager or the CEO of Cracker Barrel, did you do anything wrong? No. So is this a situation where you kind of just let it go? I mean, there are a lot of really opinionated cynics on social media who have very strong opinions and like to respond to things. And that's something that has really, really grown over the last few years with a lot of, social events and different things happening. So I think there are some cases where you don't need to raise your hands and apologize and be overly concerned. And sometimes saying nothing or again, taking a lighthearted approach and making light of it is the best way to go. And then you just move on and it goes away.
So they had, if you're Cracker Barrel, you had two decisions. One is, oh my gosh, did we make a decision by introducing Impossible Sausage to our menu? And do we need to back off on that, right? That's one decision, which was a significant decision, which I'm sure went in with consumer research and all that. And the second decision is, what do we do about this social media crisis where our inbox, our social media platforms are blowing up with these anti-meatless people? And you're right. So what they decided to do on both fronts was nothing. And there's that kind of like a brilliance to that, right? Where when you're in the midst of a social media crisis, you think that the entire world shares the opinion of the loudest cranks out there. And so you start to have, if you need to just kind of take a step back and have some perspective about the larger goal that you were trying to meet. And so I love that he had the discipline really not to have fun with it, not to do it, just kind of ignore it. And that's what they did. And I think that's a great example of kind of gone the range of different responses to social media. So when I think about, what our lessons are here, I think that, we need to have always be thinking about your response being proportional, right? How loud do you need to be? What kind of actions do you need to take beyond, what you're engaging on social platforms with? Just in a proportional response that, I think the United case reminds us to be honest and transparent, because the internet has lots of eyes and ears, and lots of folks are going to be watching. That you respond. I think the Domino's example reminds us that you respond on appropriate platforms, that this is not something we necessarily need to send out a news release every time you have a position about something. And then just the last one that reminds us that I think that there's a perspective here to have, and to always move forward with that bigger perspective, and understanding that the loudest voices don't necessarily carry the right message.
Right. I agree with all of that. And I think another key thing to remember when you're coming up with a response or what the messaging should be is just to think back on your company values. Anything that you're, responding to should just align with that. There are all kinds of situations, big and small, like we've talked about, all very unique. There's dozens of ways to go about how you respond, and just stand true to your brand and what you believe in. And if you're not in the wrong, then stand by it and act appropriately and accordingly, like you said.
And if you are in the wrong,
say you're sorry.
Yeah, own up. Yeah, I agree with that about values. I always say that a crisis will expose your values more than anything else. So, well, this is great. I hope some folks took some value from this. They were fun kind of stories to research and chat about. And I like that they kind of ran the gamut of different experiences. So, Amanda, thanks for your insights. Enjoyed it.
Thanks.
See you next time.
Bye, guys.